Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us in the class of Sciences of Hadith. Today, inshallah, we will continue talking about the authentic hadith or hadith al-sahih. We explained the conditions of the hadith sahih and we mentioned the definition of the hadith sahih and we talked a little bit about it. Today, inshallah, we will continue with few issues remaining regarding the hadith which is sahih. And we mentioned that you could say authentic hadith or hadith sahih. And we mentioned that there are 5 conditions. 3 of them are required in order for the hadith to become sahih. And 5 conditions, 2 more conditions added in order for the hadith to become accepted. Now, sometimes they say this is an authentic hadith. And sometimes they say the isnad of this hadith is authentic. I want you to take a look at these 2 statements and tell me what do you see as difference. This is an authentic hadith or the isnad of this hadith is authentic. Are they the same or there is difference in these 2 statements? What do you think? Yes?
There's a difference when he's talking about the chains, verify the chains, not
Okay.
the text,
Okay.
and the other one is verifying the text and not the chain.
Okay, so one is verifying the chain, not the text. Another one is the text. So which one should we take?
You need to take both.
Both? No, but they say the isnad is authentic. So this is stronger, or when they say the hadith is authentic?
The hadith is authentic.
This is stronger when they say the hadith. Why?
Because it all includes the first definition.
It includes, so it's not only the text, it's the isnad and the text. Do you agree? You just said something different. Yes, Shahada.
One student says the hadith is authentic, strong. I forget how to pronounce the name. Alawi.
Yeah, Alawi. Okay. When we say the isnad is authentic, we're talking about the chain. Now, in general, as long as the chain is authentic, the hadith itself is authentic. However, many times we have the isnad is authentic, yet still we don't accept the hadith. Therefore, the second statement is stronger when we say the hadith is authentic. When we say the hadith is authentic means the hadith itself, including the text and the chain of narrators. Now, again, in general, there is no difference. In general, once you say the isnad is authentic, the hadith itself also is authentic. But to be more accurate, the isnad itself does not entail or it does not necessitate that the hadith in totality is accepted. So this is the difference. Now, again, in Arabic they say هذا حديث صحيح الإسناد, or they say هذا حديث صحيح. When they say the hadith itself is sahih, means in both text and isnad. Now, inshallah, after we discussed the authentic hadith, hadith sahih, we're moving to the second level, which is hadith hasan. Hasan means good hadith. It's still accepted. However, it's a little bit lower than the authentic or the sahih hadith. In the old generations, at the time of the scholars like Imam Bukhari, Imam Ahmad, and so on, they did not have this division, Sahih, Hasan, Da'if. They did not have it to 3 categories. They had 2 categories, accepted, rejected. Sahih, Da'if. So the Hasan is included with the Sahih. However, later on scholars came and they differentiated and they separated the Hadith Hasan from the Sahih. So now we have highly authentic hadith and lowly authentic hadith or good hadith. Now it's still hadith hasan is accepted, but unlike the sahih hadith. So if you wanted to define the hadith hasan, what do we say? How can you give the definition of hadith hasan? What can you say? Now linguistically, hasan means beautiful, good. And that's why we have many people, they name their children Hasan, beautiful. But in the hadith terminology, How can we define hadith Hasan? What do you think?
And it was continuous.
With continuous isnad. Even the mawdu' could be continuous isnad. That's not enough. Trustworthy.
Narrators.
Okay. What do you think? Yes.
Positive says it meets all five conditions of Sahih, except that the narrative is not as precise as in the Sahih category.
Yes, that's good, Bazigha. In order to know the definition of the hadith Hasan, you need to know the hadith Sahih. So let's go back first and see how we define the hadith Sahih. What did we say? Look here, the hadith with connected or continuous chain of narrators, whose memorization and trustworthiness is what? Excellent. You see the word excellent? That's the only word you need to change. Without defects or oddness, or without being outlandish or hidden defects. Now, in the hadith Sahih, the memorization, it has to be what? Excellent. Which means if you say 10 ahadith, they say it back without any errors. Hasan, they say the 10 ahadith with few errors. Now, their trustworthiness is not in question, which means they don't commit sins, so they are truthful. However, their memorization, there is a problem with their memorization, with their dabt, as we say in Arabic, with their dabt. They are not as precise as the Sahih category. That's the only difference. And in our days, if you want to convert this to our days, if you say that the authentic or the strong is like having over 750 in your credit score. So the Hasan would be over 690 or 675. It's still accepted, you may still get the deal, but it's not as if you had the higher category, like the Sahih, over 750, where you will get it automatically. So that's the hadith Hasan. What was narrated with the continuous chain from the beginning to the end, and or whose narrators are excellent in trustworthiness, but their memorization is good or less than excellent, without hidden defects or oddness. That's the definition of hadith Hasan. So it needs the conditions of the Sahih. The only difference, the memorization is a little bit weaker. Now it's not weak, it's not average, it's still good, but it's not as good as the Sahih. So someone narrated a hadith which is Hasan. What do you say? Do you accept it or you reject it? It was graded by the scholars, it is Hasan. Do you accept this hadith or you reject it? You accept. Why? Why? Remember, it's part of the accepted hadith. We already said that. Previously, scholars did not have this division. It is part of the accepted hadith. We accept it. There is a doubt, but that's not a strong doubt, that there may be a mistake. Once they observed the narrator, they found out that he made 2 mistakes in 100 ahadith. So he's not excellent in memorization. Unlike the one who, if he heard 1,000 ahadith, he will never make any mistake in them. So it's still accepted. So the hadith Hasan is accepted. We're still studying the accepted hadith. We have authentic and we have Hasan. We have hadith Sahih and we have hadith Hasan. Now, since this was a relatively new term, some scholars had unique terms, like Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah. Before that, let me ask you this. If you wanted to look for a hadith Sahih, where do you go? Raise your voice. Sahih al-Bukhari, that's correct. What else? Sahih Muslim. If you wanted authentic ahadith, that's where you go. Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. We mentioned that they are not the only two books, but that's where you will find authentic ahadith. That's their place. What about Hadith Hasan? Where do you find it? Where do you find it? If you wanted the Hadith Hasan, which is still accepted, but it's not as strong as the authentic Hadith, where do you go? Any thoughts? Yes. Tirmidhi, yes. Tirmidhi, Abu Dawood, Sunnah al-Nasa'i. Most of the ahadith in these books, most, not all, most of them, you could say over 50%, over 60% are what? Hasan. These ahadith are Hasan in these books. Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, Abu Dawood. Ibn Majah, yes, to some extent. There are lots of weak ahadith, unlike the other books. But still, there is also. You will find a lot there. So that's where you find Hadith Hasan. Okay? Now, Imam al-Tirmidhi rahimahullah, he himself, he had a troublesome statement which caused lots of confusion afterwards. He says, he used to say, هذا حديث حسن صحيح. Now we mentioned that Sahih is different than Hasan. Both of them are accepted. But Sahih is stronger than Hasan. So he used to say about one hadith, it is Sahih and Hasan. هذا حديث حسن صحيح. Hasan Sahih. To the same hadith. So, how do you interpret his statement? What can you say? Are they the same? Hadith Hasan or Sahih? Or they are different? Are they different or they are the same?
I think he's mentioning that it's Hasan.
Hasan. If it's Hasan, it cannot be Sahih. Why he mentioned Sahih? هذا حديث حسن صحيح. Many times, Imam Tirmidhi. He's actually the only one who had this term.
Because he thinks Hasan to be Sahih. He considers Hasan to be
Sahih. Why he mentions Hasan then and confuses us? He could just mention Sahih and that's it. Good, you're trying. Any other? To confuse us? Maybe.
Probably a no.
Yes.
Abdullah says some overlap. If it's Sahih, if it's Hasan as well.
Well, some overlap. If it's Sahih, then it is Hasan as well, right? But if it's Hasan, it's not Sahih. So it's one way, it's not both ways. So you cannot use it alternatively. You have to use one of them. What do you think? That's it? No answers? What do you think? Yes?
Tanvir says Sahih will be Hasan and Hasan cannot be Sahih.
Good, Tanwir. Sahih will be Hasan, but Hasan will not be Sahih. Yet he mentioned both. So he cannot mention them both, because not every Hasan is Sahih, but every Sahih is Hasan. That's why Imam Suyuti rahimahullah, when he wrote his poem about the hadith, he says, والحكم بالصحة والحسن على متن رواه الترمذي واستشكل فقيل يعني اللغوي ويلزم وصف الضعيف وهو نكر لهم وقيل باعتبار تعداد السند وفيه شيء حيث وصف من فرد. Now, some scholars, again, they have lots of opinions. Some scholars came after Imam Tirmidhi and they said, he meant by hadith Hasan Sahih, from one chain he is Hasan, from another chain he is Sahih. So the hadith is what? Hasan Sahih. What do you think of that? That's good, right? What do you think? Isn't it good? But what if the hadith has only one chain of narrators? yet he still says Hasan Sahih. So Imam Suyuti rahimahullah, he himself said, وَقَدْ بَدَا لِي فِيهِ مَعْنَيَانِ لَمْ يُوجَدَا لِأَهْلِ هَذَا الشَّانِ أي حسن على الذي به يحد وهو أصح ما هناك قد وجد. He says, it is Hasan. It is Hasan from a sense that it is not authentic as the Sahih. In our terminology, just as we studied, the memorization is not excellent. So it is Hasan. But it is the most authentic I have found in this chapter. And this is something many scholars used to mention. So maybe he mentioned it differently. Like Abu Dawud rahimahullah, sometimes he says, this is the most authentic thing in this chapter. That does not mean it's automatically authentic. Maybe it's weak by itself. But that's the strongest I could find. Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah, sometimes he compares between some ahadith. And he says, this is the strongest hadith in this chapter. Even though the rest are authentic already. But that's the strongest one. So maybe that's what Imam al-Tirmidhi rahimahullah meant. He meant that this is Hasan from our terminology. Hasan, it's not authentic, means it's Sahih, but it is Hasan. The memorization is a little bit weak. But it is the most authentic thing I found in this chapter. So that's what he meant by Hasanun Sahih. Again, as I told you, in general, you cannot say that. Whether you say it is Hasan or you say it is Sahih. So that's one of the best answers for this statement of Imam Tirmidhi. What did he mean by Hasan Sahih? Or he meant another meaning. He meant that it is Hasan by itself, for its own sake. But if it has another narration, it endorses it. And it strengthens this hadith. So it becomes what? Sahih. It is for itself, it is Hasan. But for another narration, it becomes Sahih. So we have two strong answers for this statement for Imam Tirmidhi. Hasan for its own sake or by itself. Sahih for another factor. أي حسن لذاته صحيح لغيره لما بدا الترجيح. These are the answers that Imam Suyuti rahimahullah provided. Other answers are not really strong because some of the answers they said Hasan in hadith terminology and or Hasan linguistically and Sahih in hadith terminology. Because we said Hasan linguistically means good. So it is good, this hadith is good, but it is authentic. But that's not really a good answer. Because this is also could be applied to the weak hadith. The weak hadith linguistically could be good. So it's not accepted. Some ahadith, they look good. When you read them, they are really nice, but it's weak. So you cannot apply this. So these are the two best answers. What are the answers? First, it is Hasan by itself in hadith terminology. However, it is the strongest hadith in this chapter or in this book. Book of Salah, book of Siyam, book of Hajj. This is the strongest I found. Or it is Hasan for its own sake by itself, yet it becomes authentic because of another factor. So these are the two answers for this statement. In general, you cannot say that Hasan Sahih because we have it with Imam Tirmidhi. We tried to interpret this statement. Now, we need an example. We said if you wanted to find Hadith Hasan, mostly you find it in Tirmidhi, Abu Dawud, Sunan al-Daraqutni also, another example. Here, we chose a hadith from Sunan Imam al-Tirmidhi rahimahullah. We have Qutaybah from Ja'far ibn Sulaiman, from Abi Imran al-Jun, from Abu Bakr ibn Abi Musa, from Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu. Now we have Qutaybah ibn Sa'id, from Ja'far ibn Sulaiman, from Abu Imran al-Juni, from Abu Bakr ibn Abi Musa. Abu Bakr ibn Abi Musa is the son of Abu Musa. Abu Musa is Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anh. Do you know Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anh? Have you heard of his name? Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. You know his name? What's the name of Abu Musa radiyallahu anh? This is his kunya. This is his nickname. The father of Musa. So who is it? What's his name? Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. Does anyone know the name of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari? Abdullah bin Qais radiyallahu anh. The Prophet ﷺ said, the doors of the Jannah are underneath the shades of swords. Al-Jannah tahta dhilal as-suyuf. Which means, if you fight in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a means to enter Jannah. This is an example. Now again, why this hadith is not sahih, it is only hasan? Because one of the narrators, again, you need only one of the narrators, his memorization is not strong enough to become hasan. Only one, because all of them, remember all of them we mentioned, they have to be excellent in memorization. If one of them is not, then the hadith cannot be sahih anymore. So if one of them has only good memorization, then it becomes hasan. Here, Abu Imran al-Juni, he is the one whose memorization is not as strong as it should be, so the hadith is hasan. It's still accepted, so we believe that the Prophet ﷺ said this hadith, but with a percentage of error, with the small percentage of error. This is an example for hadith hasan. And again, as I told you, it will come with us inshallah when you study the narrators. You study each narrator. Is he authentic? Is he da'if, weak? Is he hasan? The hasan itself is divided to two levels. Remember about the hadith sahih, we said the strongest hadith sahih is what? Mutawatir. Mutawatir, it's not even, it's above sahih. But from the levels of sahih, we have the one that is narrated by all scholars, Marawahu al-Jama'ah, or Muttafaqun alayh, Bukhari and Muslim, then Al-Bukhari, then Muslim, then what was on the condition of Al-Bukhari, then what was in the condition of Muslim, then what is narrated in other books like Al-Hakim or Ibn Hibban or Ibn Khuzaymah. These are the levels. Now here, with Hadith Hasan, also we have levels. Even with the Hadith Hasan, we still have levels. But unlike the Sahih, because we don't have a scholar, he came and he said, I will mention only Hasan Ahadith. We don't have that. So they looked for the chain of narrators. So they specified some chains of narrators as the strongest Hasan. And the rest, they are only Hasan. So we have highest Hasan and we have next to it, which is regular Hasan. So it's only two levels, unlike the hadith authentic. And it does not pertain to a specific book, but rather it is to a chain of narrator. What are these narrators? We have one famous chain of narrators. Amr ibn Shu'ayb an Abih an Jaddih. Amr ibn Shu'ayb, from his father, Shu'ayb ibn Muhammad, from his grandfather, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. This is one of the strongest chains of narrators in the Hasan Hadith, which means, now why they mention it? Again, to make it easy for you. Once you see this chain, you know that it is Hasan, automatically, if not Sahih, because it's the strongest chain. Amr ibn Shu'ayb an Abih an Jaddih. This is one of the examples. Amr ibn Shu'ayb, from his father, who is Shu'ayb ibn Muhammad, from his grandfather, who is Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. This is one of the strongest chains of Hadith Hasan. You don't have to know it. I just mentioned it for you to know that even the Hadith Hasan, it has levels. Now we are coming to an important issue, which is endorsing the Hadith or strengthening the Hadith. if we say this hadith is Hasan, okay, let's say this hadith is Hasan, could this hadith by itself be elevated to become a Sahih hadith? Could it or could it not? If we have a hadith and we say this hadith is Hasan, could it become authentic hadith Sahih or not? Yes?
Yes.
Who said yes?
Positive option. Abdullah says yes.
How? Whoever said yes, how? If what? If something supports?
Arshia says
Multiple Hasan hadith can become Sahih. Exactly. Now remember, we said why the hadith becomes Hasan. Why it becomes Hasan? Because one of the narrators or more, what happened to them? Their memorization is what? Is not excellent. We don't say it's weak, it's not excellent, it's good. Good means there is a possibility that there is an error. But when we have another chain for the same hadith, we have another chain with another narrator who is also good. This means one good and another one is good. What happens? They endorse each other. They strengthen each other. So the hadith could become authentic. Therefore, we have some terms in hadith terminology. Sahih for its own sake, or Sahih lidhatih. That's what we say in Arabic. Sahihun lidhatih. And we have Sahihun lighayrih. Sahih for another factor or for another reason. So we have hadith Sahihun lidhatih and Sahihun lighayrih. Sahihun lidhatih means Sahih for its own sake. Sahih lighayrih, Sahih for another factor. What do we mean by that? Sahih lidhatih, Sahih for its own sake, or Sahih by itself, is the hadith that we already discussed about the authentic hadith. An excellent narrators in memorization and in trustworthiness with continuous chain, without oddness and without defects. This is Sahih lidhatih. Sahih lighayrih, it is the Hasan hadith when it's endorsed by another Hasan hadith. It became Sahih, not for its own sake. For its own sake, it is Hasan. But another factor came and endorsed this hadith. I will repeat one more time. Sahih lidhatih, Sahih for its own sake, the hadith that we already discussed. A continuous chain of narrators with excellent memorization and trustworthiness, without hidden defects or oddness. This is hadith Sahih. Hadith Sahih lighayrih, for another factor, for another reason, the weak hadith or the Hasan hadith when there is another factor that endorses it or strengthens it. Okay? So again, if we have one narration, includes one of the narrators whose memorization is not excellent, then we give it the Hasan degree. That's the grade of it. But if the same hadith, the same text, came from a different chain with the same level of strength, this is good and this is good, what happens? Each one strengthens the other, so it becomes Sahih. That's the Hasan lidhatih, which becomes Sahih lighayrih. Sahih for another factor or for another reason. This is what we mean by hadith Sahih lighayrih. Is this clear? I'll give you an example. Look at this chain of narrators. Look here, we have Muhammad ibn Amr, who took it from Abu Salama. Abu Salama took it from Abu Huraira, and Abu Huraira took it from the Prophet ﷺ. Now let's say Muhammad ibn Amr, he is not excellent. The same hadith came from Abu Zinad, from Al-A'raj, from Abu Huraira. Okay? So we have now Abu Zinad is excellent, but Al-A'raj is a little bit not excellent. So the hadith in general, does it become authentic or not? This is the shape of the hadith. What do you think? Sahih لغيره. Does it become Sahih لغيره or not? Here, Muhammad ibn Amr, he is not excellent. He's good. This man is excellent. But this man here is not excellent, while this man is excellent. So what do you think? Yes? Of course, yes. Yes, it becomes Sahih. Because again, here we needed someone to strengthen this man, and he came here. While this one by itself, from here to there, it is not authentic, because this one is still weak. Not weak, but not excellent. So this one strengthened that one. Is it clear how it endorses the hadith? It backs it up. Okay. Now, let me repeat the same chain with little bit difference. Let's say this is the chain, the first one. Muhammad ibn Amr from Abu Salama from Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu. Then we have Muhammad ibn Amr from Al-A'raj from Abu Hurairah. Does it become Sahih لغيره or not? We have two different chains. Does it become Sahih لغيره or not? What do you think? Yes or no?
No.
Why?
The same guy.
Exactly, because the same one. The problem is here with Muhammad. He himself, he needs someone else. So it doesn't matter if we have 2 or 3 and the same one. So it's not always the more you have narrations, the stronger you have. In general, yes, the more you have, the stronger you have. But they have to be different people. If it's the same one, now he is good, and the others are excellent. Then he is the same one who's good, the others are excellent. Then nothing happened. No one endorsed him. So you need to have someone else added to him. So that's the difference between this chain and the previous one. We had 2 different chains, while here they are 2 different, but we have the same guy from the bottom. So it cannot be endorsed. Is this clear? Okay. If the narrators, all of them are excellent except for one, then this is the Hasan, which we just discussed now today. While if we have the same issue, the narrator is weak, he is not good, then the hadith becomes lower, one level, to what? Instead of Hasan, it becomes what? Da'if. It becomes da'if. Can it be endorsed, the da'if? Can the da'if be endorsed to become Hasan لغيره? Just like we said, the Hasan لذاته could become Sahih لغيره. It can. You see what I said here? It also can be endorsed. The same thing. If we have a weak hadith, because there is only little bit weakness in one of the narrators, another narrator came and he endorsed that narrator, then it becomes Hasan لغيره. Hasan for another factor, not for its own sake or by itself. Hasan for another factor. However, we have specific conditions. Not every weak hadith becomes Hasan. What are these conditions? That's inshallah what we will know later. And with this we will end our session for today. هذا وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Is there any question? How do we tell the difference? Who's excellent and who's not? You need to do the study. There are specific books. They mention exclusively each narrator. Is he excellent? Is he good? Is he very good? This is coming later on, inshallah. We will discuss it later, soon. It will be discussed soon, inshallah.